I never imagined that peace could sound like betrayal. That morning, the lake was quiet to quiet. The kind of silence that warns you something terrible is about to happen. I was sitting on the old bench near the willow tree, the same spot where my son Louis used to fish with me when he was little. Then I saw her, my daughter-in-law, Cynthia. She was struggling to carry a large suitcase, dragging it toward the edge of the dock. I called out to her, but she didn't turn. Her movements were sharp, desperate. Before I could take another step, she shoved the suitcase into the water, and it sank fast. For a second, I froze. My heart began to pound so hard that it hurt. I wanted to believe it was nothing, maybe old clothes, maybe trash, but then I heard it, a sound I'll never forget, a faint, muffled cry. My knees went weak. "Dear God," I whispered. I rushed to the water, my shoes sinking into the mud, my hands trembling as I reached for the handle floating just beneath the surface. The suitcase was heavier than I could bear, but somehow, I dragged it to the shore. When I opened it, I felt my soul leave my body. Inside was a tiny baby, drenched, gasping, his tiny chest struggling for air. A newborn, barely days old. I wrapped him in my shawl, pressing his tiny fingers to my chest. "Stay with me, please. Please stay," I whispered, as tears blurred everything. I ran toward the car, my heart breaking with every breath. At the hospital, the nurses took him from my arms. I remember their faces: shock, confusion, horror. The doctor said if I'd been even 5 minutes later, he wouldn't have survived. And that's when the truth began to surface. When the police asked who the baby belonged to, I told them I didn't know. But deep inside, something in me already did. That tiny face, the same nose, the same small dimple as my Louis, my son. Tears rolled down my cheeks. Louis had died just 2 weeks earlier in what Cynthia called a car accident. But now, everything felt wrong. Too wrong. Why would she do this? What was in that suitcase, and what had she already buried before I saw her? That night, as I sat by the baby's hospital bed, listening to the beeping machines, I made a silent promise. I would find out the truth even if it destroyed me. Because this child, this fragile little heartbeat, was the last piece of my son I had left, and I would not let Cynthia take that away too. The baby survived the night. The doctors said it was a miracle, but I knew it wasn't just luck. It was as if Louis himself had reached out from heaven and begged God to save his son. I named the baby Eli, after Louis's middle name. Holding him, I felt both comfort and pain. Comfort, because I still had a piece of my boy, and pain, because every time Eli opened his eyes, I saw Louis staring back at me. The police questioned me the next morning. "Do you have any idea who the mother could be?" they asked. My lips trembled. I think I do. When I said Cynthia's name, they exchanged looks: sharp, doubtful, professional. "She told us she lost her husband recently," one officer said quietly. "Yes," I replied, "and now you need to ask her how." That afternoon, I drove to Louis and Cynthia's house, the same one I'd helped them buy after their wedding. The moment I opened the front door, I felt something cold inside me. The curtains were drawn, the air smelled like bleach, and the picture frames on the walls, all of Louis's photos were gone, every single one. I went upstairs to Louis's old study. His desk, once full of sketches and plans, had been emptied out. But when I pulled open the bottom drawer, a stack of letters slipped out. Letters Louis had written to me, never sent. His handwriting trembled, ink smudged. "Mom, something's wrong. Cynthia's been talking to a lawyer about the inheritance. She doesn't know I heard her. Please don't worry yet, but I'm scared." My breath caught. My hands shook so violently that the papers fell from my grip. Cynthia had been planning something even before the accident. Just then, I heard footsteps downstairs. Heavy, slow, deliberate. I froze. The door creaked open slightly. "Mother?" A familiar voice called, "Cynthia." My heart pounded so loud it drowned everything else. I stepped back into the shadows of the room, clutching Louis's letters against my chest. She walked in calm, composed, but her eyes were colder than the lake water. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said softly. I came to pick up some things for Louis, I replied, forcing my voice not to shake. She smiled a thin, lifeless smile. Oh, you poor thing, she said, brushing invisible dust off the table. Still holding on to ghosts. I wanted to scream, to confront her, but I stayed silent, because in that moment, I saw something behind her shoulder, a torn insurance document on the counter, with Louis's name printed at the top, and Cynthia's signature below. She had already collected the money. As I left the house that day, my tears burned like acid. I knew now my son's death wasn't an accident, and the woman who tried to drown his baby was the same woman who murdered him. Music builds. Slow, tragic violin. But I couldn't go to the police yet. I had no proof, only a heart full of grief and letters stained with tears. So I made a plan. I would gather the truth piece by piece, and when the time came, I'd make her confess to everything she'd buried, even if I had to dig it up with my own hands. I couldn't sleep for days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Louis's smile fading beneath the water, and that cursed suitcase sinking deeper into the lake. The police had promised to look into it, but I could see it in their eyes. They didn't believe me. To them, I was just an old woman lost in grief, building monsters out of memories. But I knew what I saw, and I knew what Cynthia had done. So I began my own investigation. I went through Louis's old phone records, his emails, his bank statements, anything I could find. That's when I noticed a pattern. Large withdrawals, days before his accident, all signed by Cynthia. Then, a message Louis had never sent, drafted but unsent: if anything happens to me, don't trust her. My hands shook, my throat burned. He knew she might kill him. I decided to follow her. For 2 nights, I sat in my car near her house, watching through the fogged-up window. She lived carelessly, parties, new clothes, new jewelry, while my son's grave was still fresh. On the 3rd night, something happened. A man came to her door. He wasn't a friend, his face was nervous, hidden under a cap. They argued in the driveway. I leaned closer, heart pounding. Keep your mouth shut, she hissed. I did what you asked, the man replied. But this isn't what we agreed on. You said he'd survive the crash. My breath caught. He turned toward his car, and in that moment, I saw his face, the same mechanic Louis had trusted to fix his brakes weeks before his death. Tears spilled from my eyes. My worst fear had a name now. The next morning, I went to the police again. I showed them Louis's letters, the documents, and told them what I'd heard. They listened, finally really listened. The officer promised to reopen the case quietly. But you must stay away from her for now, he warned. Stay away? How could I, when the devil still walked free, wearing my son's wedding ring around her neck? That evening, I went to the hospital. Eli was stronger now. His little hands reached for my face. His touch gave me strength I didn't know I had left. I whispered, "Your father didn't die for nothing, my love. I'll make sure the world knows the truth." But as I stepped outside, I felt eyes watching me. A car was parked across the street, tinted windows, engine running. My heartbeat thundered, and then my phone rang. No number, just a voice. Cold, familiar. "You should have stayed out of it, Mother." My blood turned to ice. Cynthia. The line went dead. I turned toward the lake in the distance, its dark surface rippling under the wind, and I knew this wasn't over. She was warning me, or perhaps challenging me. I clutched Louis's letters close to my heart and whispered into the night, "You took my son, Cynthia, but I swear on his soul you will not take my grandson." It had been 3 weeks since that call. Cynthia's warnings still echoed in my head. Every night I felt her shadow behind me. Every sound made me flinch. But fear wasn't enough to stop me anymore. She had already taken everything except Eli. One morning, I received a message from the detective handling Louis's reopened case. "Mrs. Graham," he said, "we found something." He handed me a small, mud-stained flash drive recovered from Louis's car wreckage. When they opened the files, the room went silent. It was a dashcam video. Louis's voice filled the speakers, calm but tense. "Cynthia, stop. Please, we can talk about this." Then a scream, the sound of tires skidding, and a woman's voice, cold and sharp. You won't control anything once you're gone. My chest tightened. The screen went black. And then the crash. I covered my mouth, shaking. There was no doubt left she killed him. The detective looked at me softly. We'll arrest her today. But before the police could act, Cynthia disappeared. Her car was found abandoned near the lake, the same lake that had swallowed her sins once before. That night, the rain poured harder than I'd ever seen. I went there alone, clutching Eli's baby blanket against my heart. Something inside told me she'd come back, and she did. She stepped out from the shadows, drenched, her eyes wild with fear and rage. You couldn't just let it go, could you? She hissed. You think anyone will believe an old woman? I took a step forward. They don't have to believe me anymore. Lewis told them himself. Her face drained of color. You found it? Yes, I said, my voice breaking. The truth always floats back up, just like that suitcase. For a moment, she froze, then lunged toward me, screaming. We struggled on the slippery dock, the rain pounding around us. Her hand grabbed my shawl, pulling me down, but I fought back with everything I had. And then, suddenly, she slipped. The wooden plank broke beneath her feet. Her scream cut through the storm as she fell into the dark water below. The lake swallowed her whole the same way it once tried to swallow Eli. I stood there trembling, rain mixing with tears, watching the ripples fade. I didn't move for a long time. I didn't feel victory, only silence. The next morning, the police found her body near the shore. It was over. Months later, I stood by Lewis's grave, Eli in my arms. He smiled at the falling leaves, unaware of the pain that brought him here. I whispered, "Your father is proud of you, my love, and so am I." I looked at the lake one last time. The water was calm now, as if all its secrets had finally sunk to rest. You thought the lake could hide your evil, Cynthia? I whispered. But even the water knows a mother's love never drowns.